Hello, everyone. Yes, I am not actually a cat. I am just a weird looking fella who is kind of on the chunky side. Big surprise. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about Sorcery Contested Realm today and actually go into a little bit of what I went through in my first playthrough. So, there are some things that I want to talk about that are a lot more based around the identity of the game, core differences from MTG and other such games, and a couple of other things as well. So, first, Game 1. Game 1 was an experiment. Game 1 was something that I would like to call a mess around game. We didn't know the rules, my friend and myself. We didn't know the rules very well. We didn't know how to do anything. A lot of the time when I'm playing these games, I like to get a hands-on feel for it, hands-on feel for how the cards play, kind of fill in some of the gaps, at least for the first couple of games. So, bearing in mind that a lot of this does come from that. So, loose rule readings were very definitely a thing that we did for the first game. So, Inquisitor deck punished me a lot. Inquisitor deck really it was not a friendly deck for me at all. It literally just it beat the crap out of me to the point where I was on death's door, or what I would have been if we'd have read that rule. Death's door. It just didn't work well for me, and we realized later that that was down to probably bad shuffling because when I picked up the deck afterwards and looked at the cards, it turns out that all of the heal cards that I needed were in the deck. I just wasn't drawing them. So probably my fault. But my friend as well was just beating the crap out of me with everything that he got. He had a deck that actually worked really well against mine and just beat me. But it was still fun. I ended up in the end trying to do my usual strategy, which was trying to make it so that I would lose harder. So if I'm about to lose, I will quite often say, well, you can't kill me, I'll kill me. And just deal as much damage to myself as humanly possible. So, yeah, it's fine. Game 2 was much more sort of what I would call fruitful, much more like the experience that we had. As I said, both of these experiences I'm not counting as like the authentic, genuine experience. I think this is a light version of it. In other words, we were trying to learn the game as we went along. So we kind of made some mistakes and we corrected ourselves along the way. And we had a lot of, I should have done this, or we should have done that, never mind, kind of behavior. So game 2, we had a better understanding of the rules. We realized how things didn't make sense. My opponent was playing a skeleton deck, which was very spammy, very it spammed out non-defending skeletons that were like, I think they were 1/1s or one attack, and just sort of they just spammed across the field because of something that he'd done with one of his sites, which was if a skeleton is on the site, it pushes it forward, and that made a relentless kind of every turn spawn of skeletons, which is fun, but also annoying as hell. He was using a lot of the the bury mechanics. I was using a lot of the submerge mechanics, and I was using Lovecraftian creatures, Lovecraftian horrors, as I would like to say, and trying to attack as much as humanly possible, trying to drag his creatures into a watery grave, and yeah, lots of fun things like that. I think overall, our first two games, definitely we both decided we're going to play some more. Um, our first two games are going to be really sort of instrumental in us playing. Like they were useful, they were helpful for us to actually learn how to play the game. And we're going to play more. We're going to make our own decks because we both kind of decided, okay, well, I really know what I don't like. I really don't like the Inquisitor playstyle. I really don't like dealing with the aggressive stuff. Cards that are going to essentially make it so that any time that I'm playing my cards, I'm suffering for it and have to heal very quickly, otherwise, I'm going to end up being screwed. So I think the biggest first takeaway that I will have is that the Inquisitor deck was really fun, if not completely self-destructive, and plays a lot like Mono Red. The Skeleton Swarm deck, as I call it, it floods the board with really, really weak skeletons, and yeah, it's fun. It's got lots of mechanics. It's got lots of like dragging down into the grave kind of mechanics, and that's really thematic and fun. The heroes that we have are, I guess, they're avatars in this game. The avatars that we have are interesting as well, but I'll get into that in a little while. The Deep Sea slash Lovecraft deck is really fun. And I think my friend the first game was playing a townsfolk deck, for a deck that is entirely based around normal people. Um, by the way, we're playing Gothic. It will be in the video title. We were playing Gothic, and that's sort of my jumping in point. I really want to get some Arthurian legends. So let's talk about the feel of the game. The overall kind of feel of how this game is. Compared to Magic the Gathering, it's completely different. Like, it feels much more like playing a board game. You and your opponent are kind of creating a landscape in front of you that is built up of different sites that all do different things. Some of them are positive, some of them are negative, some of them harm you when you land on them, some of them cause damage to your avatar, some of them will have an effect when something's on them. You can make traps on your lands and all kinds of interesting, weird things. You can have if it's a water land, you can have things underneath the land and have them submerged. You can submerge minions, which cause them to die. You can do all sorts of things. I said minions there. It's not minions. I think it's creatures. It must be creatures. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like I say, first couple of games. So in essence, your land is sort of a zone that you fight on. And that's completely different to MTG as well. Your lands are just sort of your lands. They're like sacrificial, kind of almost like tokens in a way. They give you mana. They might have an extra effect, but that's about it. In this game, your lands are everything. They give you mana, they have extra effects, they are traps, they are potential safe havens for your creatures, and attacking them does damage to you, or being attacked by your enemy does damage to you, which causes problems, shall we say. So yeah, you can get a long way by just attacking your opponent's kind of lands, your opponent's sites in this game, as they're called. Your avatar, your main guy, you essentially, they all have unique effects. They all have useful effects. And I'll probably get a picture up here of one of them. And I think I'll probably get the Druid one up because he's one of the more interesting and simple ones as well. They all do something. So you can tap them to do something, or they have an intrinsic ability where they can just do it. They all have the tap draw from your Atlas. I think probably that's a result of in playtesting, perhaps there's some kind of knowledge that they gained that actually there isn't enough draw power for Atlas, so we'll give everything draw power for the Atlas. Which gets me onto the deck structures. And there is two decks. There is the Atlas and there is the Spellbook. The atlas is your sites, your lands, what you're building the player board with, and your your spellbook is what everything else is in. So your sorceries, your um, spells, your characters, everything is what is in the second one. Now, I think that is a good kind of setup, a good way of giving you a perspective of this game right now. So the first thing that you want to do, if you were to play a game of this, is to essentially formulate a plan and set up your board in your head how you would like it to go. Where you would want certain sites to be, where it would be advantageous. For an example, in my Leviathan-y kind of deck that I was playing, my Lovecraft deck, it is much better, in my view, to put the site that allows you to generate an infinite number of Yog Saboth or Yog Sabbath or however you pronounce it uh, onto the land and generate as much as possible. Summon frog tokens, sacrifice those frog tokens, summon more Yog, keep going like that. And that gives you a big beater. I think it's something like a 5/5 or something like that. That you can just throw at your enemy if you want. If you have the ability to, you can submerge them. All kinds of fun stuff in that deck. But each deck has its own kind of strategy, its own playstyle. And I think in general, the first Gothic precon is worth picking up if you're even curious about the game. So many ways to win, so many things that you can do to actually make it so that you are ahead of your opponent, make it so that you are beating your opponent and are always summoning something. I think that's the most important thing. As long as you can summon something, your opponent will kind of go, oh, right, I've got to pay attention to that now. And that's one interesting thing about this game overall that I think is sort of overlooked maybe a little bit. You have the ability to draw your opponent's eye away from your things, away from other things. So, like, draw their attention towards your thing or towards something else, which will mean that you get to make a play. In that sense, it's very much like chess in a way, because you can say, oh, look at the shiny thing, look at this. And then they will go, oh, whoa, the shiny thing, I got to beat that. But then you're actually making a different play. There's a lot of sort of psychology behind this game as well that you can kind of deploy as a hidden tactic. It's so much nicer not using the VTube character, by the way, because I'm making all these expressions. I'm trying to produce, show my passion for the subject, and the VTube model's like. So anyway, that's just a side point. I'm quite happy to be on camera now. But yeah, this game is like a really, really good game. To the point where I really want to play so much more of it. I want to play and understand all the strategies. I want to get loads of frog tokens, like loads more. It comes with quite a few in the set. I want to get loads more of them and actually try to summon as many frogs as humanly possible. My dream deck right now is summoning a bunch of frogs and giving them all lethal. Lethal, by the way, this is a good way to get into it. Lethal, by the way, is one of the key words. So much like Magic, much like many other games, there are keywords that make texts not into, card text not into walls. And lethal is one of the ones that, if it makes contact, it destroys the creature. It completely kills them. And I think it's a good effect. It makes a 1/1, say, zombie or whatever. A 1/1 zombie. into something that just creeps forward as if it were a massive creature, and you're like, I gotta deal with that. I gotta really deal with that. So things like that make this game fun and unique. And I see now a lot of TCGs are very static compared to this game. There isn't a board, there is nowhere to move. It is just I attack, I don't attack, I defend, I don't defend, and that's fine. Like, that's Pokemon style, that's MTG style, it's whatever. But with this game, it's very dynamic. And I would argue it's almost 4D, or maybe 3D, I guess, because you're above the land, you're below the land, you can fly above the land, like the land that's there, the site that's there, if you've got airborne, and things like that. So it's a good game. I really do think you should try it for £30, or if you can get the individual precons or cards or whatever, get them. Play a game with somebody who's got TCG experience, because I think you definitely need some TCG experience to get used to this game. I think starting off with something much simpler, I was gonna say Yu-Gi-Oh! There. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not a good TCG to get into if you are just like you've never played a TCG before. Don't teach somebody to play Yu-Gi-Oh! First. Yeah, just don't. I'm not even going to get into that. Just play something else as an initial TCG. I don't know, like, I don't want to say Uno or Snap. Maybe Pokemon TCG. Pokemon TCG at the basic level, if you can get access to cards, is a really good one to actually play. And I think, genuinely, Sorcery Contested Realm, there's a lot of hype around it. There's a lot of excitement around this game. I think it's worth the excitement. I think it's worth actually checking out. And that's not something I say very often. I mean, I've been very sort of happy with MLP TCG and how that's going so far when it actually shows up. There's a theme here, isn't there? It's just a good game. And it's a complicated game. There's lots of terms, lots of things that you need to read up on. But they're all in the handbook if you get the precons. So yeah, I would check it out. Thank you for watching, and I hope I am not so horrifically hideous that I have to go back to being a cat. Oh god. Please let me know.